My name is Kathy, and I'm 57 years old. As I sit here in my living room staring at this bottle of expensive whiskey on my coffee table, I can't help but wonder how a Mother's Day gift could feel like such a betrayal. You see, 3 years ago, I made the hardest decision of my life. I quit drinking. Not just cutting back or having wine only on weekends. I mean, completely sober. And my son Marcus knew this. He knew every painful detail of my journey to sobriety. So when this beautiful bottle of Macallan arrived at my door yesterday with his name on it, I felt my world tilt sideways. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and please hit that like button if you've ever felt completely misunderstood by your own family. This story might change how you think about unconditional love. Let me take you back to understand how we got here. When Marcus was 12 years old, his father walked out on us. Just packed his bags one Thursday morning while we were both at school and work, leaving behind nothing but a note on the kitchen counter about needing to find himself. I still remember Marcus standing in our tiny apartment hallway, still wearing his soccer cleats from practice, asking where Daddy went with such confusion in his young voice. Those early years as a single mother in Denver were the hardest of my life. I was juggling 2 jobs just to keep our heads above water. During the day, I worked as a receptionist at Dr. Martinez's dental office, answering phones and scheduling appointments. Evenings and weekends, I cleaned office buildings downtown, mopping floors and emptying trash cans until midnight. Marcus would come home to an empty apartment, heat up whatever leftovers I'd managed to prepare the night before, and tackle his homework completely alone at our small kitchen table. The guilt was eating me alive. Here was this brilliant, sensitive kid who deserved so much more than what I could give him. He was making honor roll every semester playing soccer, being responsible beyond his years, and I was barely keeping my head above water. By the time I dragged myself home each night, he'd already put himself to bed, his homework neatly stacked on the counter for me to check. That's when the drinking started. Just a glass of wine at first, something to help me unwind after those brutal 16-hour days. I told myself I deserved it. I was working myself to the bone for my son, sacrificing everything to give him stability. One glass of cheap Chardonnay seemed like such a small comfort, but addiction doesn't care about your noble intentions or how hard you're working. What began as 1 glass became 2, then 3. Wine turned into vodka because it was stronger, more efficient at numbing the constant anxiety and exhaustion. Soon, I was stopping at the liquor store on my way home from cleaning offices, buying bottles. I'd promised myself would last the week, but somehow disappeared in 2 days. Marcus started finding me passed out on our old couch some mornings, still in my cleaning uniform from the night before. He learned to make his own breakfast, pack his own lunch, forge my signature on permission slips. I missed his middle school graduation because I was too hungover to get out of bed. I forgot about parent-teacher conferences entirely. There were nights when he'd bring me his math homework for help, but by 8 o'clock I was too drunk to focus on the numbers swimming on the page. The worst part was watching him retreat into himself. This kid who used to chatter about his day, show me drawings from art class, beg me to kick the soccer ball with him, in our tiny backyard slowly became quiet and self-sufficient in a way that broke my heart. He stopped asking me to attend his games. He stopped bringing friends over. He just learned to manage everything himself while I spiraled deeper into my addiction. The wake-up call came on a Tuesday morning in March 3 years ago. I woke up on my kitchen floor with dried vomit in my hair and a bruise on my forehead from where I'd apparently hit the counter on my way down. Marcus, who was 22 then and had moved back home temporarily after college to save money, was standing over me with a look I'll never forget. It wasn't anger or even disappointment. It was complete emotional exhaustion. He knelt down beside me and said quietly, "Mom, I can't watch you kill yourself anymore. Either you get help today, or I'm moving out and I won't be coming back." Something about the calm finality in his voice cut through my denial like nothing else had. This wasn't a threat or an ultimatum born from anger. This was my son giving up on me, and I couldn't blame him. That afternoon, with shaking hands and a pounding head, I called the number for Alcoholics Anonymous that I'd Googled probably 100 times, but never had the courage to dial. The woman who answered was gentle but direct. There was a meeting that evening at 7. I should come early, she said, so someone could talk with me before it started. Walking into that church basement that first night was terrifying. Sitting in that circle of strangers admitting that I was Kathy and I was an alcoholic felt like stripping naked in public. But I did it, and I kept doing it, one day at a time, one meeting at a time, fighting my way back to sobriety with a desperation I'd never felt before. Marcus had found his own apartment by the time I hit 30 days sober. He'd landed a solid job at a marketing firm downtown and was building the life he should have been able to build years earlier without having to worry about whether his mother would be conscious when he got home. We started meeting for coffee once a month. Awkward conversations where I apologized for specific memories that haunted me, and he listened politely but kept his emotional distance. He was kind, but careful with me, like I was a recovering patient he didn't want to upset. He'd ask about my job comment on the weather, update me on his work projects, but there was always this invisible wall between us. I understood it. Trust, once broken as completely as I'd broken his, doesn't rebuild overnight. Maybe it never rebuilds completely. Still, I kept hoping. Every month when we met at that little coffee shop on Broadway, I hoped he'd share something real with me, some small sign that he was willing to let me back into his life in a meaningful way. He was dating someone named Sarah he'd mentioned but hadn't introduced us. He'd gotten a promotion but didn't call to celebrate. He was planning a vacation to Colorado Springs but didn't invite me along. I told myself to be patient. I'd had 15 years to damage our relationship. I could give him as much time as he needed to heal from what I'd put him through. This past Mother's Day started like any other Sunday in my quiet, sober life. I woke up at 7 in my clean, one-bedroom apartment, made my coffee in the machine Marcus had given me for Christmas 2 years ago, and settled into my reading chair with a recovery book my sponsor had recommended. My phone sat silent on the side table. No good morning texts, no calls, nothing to indicate this day was any different from the dozens of other Sundays that had passed without acknowledgement. I wasn't bitter about it, not really. Marcus sent me cards for my birthday, and Christmas always signed with his name in that careful handwriting I remembered from his school days. No personal messages, no inside jokes, just "Happy birthday, Mom," and "Merry Christmas" in black ink. It was more than I probably deserved after the years I'd lost to drinking. Around noon, I decided to take a walk through the neighborhood park where Marcus used to play when he was little. The playground had been updated since then, but I could still picture him climbing those monkey bars in his red soccer jersey, calling for me to watch his latest trick. I sat on a bench and watched other families having their Mother's Day picnics, trying not to feel sorry for myself. That's when my phone rang at 3:15 in the afternoon. Seeing Marcus's name on the caller ID nearly made me drop the device. We hadn't spoken on the phone in months, only texted to confirm our monthly coffee dates. "Hey, Mom," he said when I answered, and there was something different in his voice. Something lighter, almost cheerful. "Happy Mother's Day!" My heart actually skipped a beat. "Thank you, sweetheart. What a nice surprise to hear from you. I hope you're having a good day. Doing anything special? Just enjoying the beautiful weather," I said, not wanting to admit I'd been sitting alone in the park feeling melancholy. "How about you? How's work been?" "Work's great, thanks for asking. Actually, I have some good news. I sent you something special for today. It should be arriving in about an hour, maybe less." A gift. Marcus had sent me a Mother's Day gift. This was unprecedented in our careful, distant relationship. My hands were actually trembling as I tried to keep my voice steady. "Oh, Marcus, you didn't have to do that." "I wanted to. I really think you're going to like it, Mom. I put a lot of thought into this one." After we hung up, I practically raced home, my mind spinning with possibilities. Maybe this was the breakthrough I'd been hoping for these past 3 years. Maybe he was finally ready to start rebuilding our relationship. Maybe my patience and consistent sobriety had finally convinced him that I'd truly changed. I spent the next hour cleaning my already clean apartment and checking my appearance in the mirror every few minutes. When the doorbell rang at 4:27, I nearly tripped over my coffee table, rushing to answer it. The delivery driver was a middle-aged man with kind eyes who seemed amused by my obvious excitement. The package he handed me was heavier than I'd expected, wrapped in brown shipping paper with Marcus's name clearly written in the return address section. Back in my living room, I sat on my couch and carefully peeled away the packaging. Underneath was an elegant black box with gold lettering that I recognized immediately. My hands froze. Inside, nestled in black velvet like a piece of jewelry, was a bottle of Macallan 18-year-old single malt Scotch whiskey. I stared at that bottle for what felt like an eternity, my brain struggling to process what I was seeing. The amber liquid inside was beautiful, catching the afternoon light streaming through my windows. The label was pristine, the bottle clearly expensive. This wasn't some cheap liquor store purchase. This was a $400 bottle of premium scotch. There had to be some explanation. Maybe the delivery company had made a mistake. Maybe this was intended for someone else with a similar name. I checked the shipping label 3 times. Kathy Morrison, my address. Everything was correct. I searched through the box, frantically looking for a card, a note, some kind of explanation that would make this make sense. There was nothing but the bottle in its elegant packaging. No message, no joke about how he'd heard I'd developed expensive taste, no acknowledgement that this gift might be problematic for someone 3 years sober. My hands were shaking as I set the bottle on my coffee table and backed away from it like it might explode. Marcus knew I was sober. He'd been there the day I called AA. He'd driven me to my first meeting because I was too nervous to go alone. He'd helped me pour every bottle in my apartment down the kitchen sink that first week, including a bottle of cooking wine I'd forgotten about in the back of my pantry. So why was there a bottle of whiskey sitting in my living room with his name attached to it? I tried calling him back twice, but it went straight to voicemail. I paced my apartment for hours, alternating between staring at the bottle and forcing myself to look away. Was this some kind of test? Had Sarah, his girlfriend I'd barely met, convinced him that 3 years was long enough to stay sober? Did he think I was being overly dramatic about my addiction? The bottle seemed to mock me from across the room. I'd been to enough AA meetings to know that just having alcohol in my home was dangerous. The smell alone could trigger cravings. I should pour it out immediately, but something held me back. This was from my son. Even if I couldn't understand why he'd sent it, throwing away a $400 gift seemed wrong. That night, I didn't sleep at all. I kept getting up to check that the bottle was still there, that I hadn't imagined the whole thing. I called my sponsor, Janet, at 11 p.m., something I'd never done before. "He sent you whiskey?" she asked, her voice carefully neutral. "A very expensive bottle, for Mother's Day." There was a long pause. "How do you feel about having it in your home?" "Confused, hurt, a little scared if I'm being honest." "Do you want me to come over and help you dispose of it?" I almost said yes, but something stopped me. I needed to understand why Marcus had done this before I made any decisions about the bottle. Let me talk to him first, find out what he was thinking. "Kathy," Janet's voice was gentle but firm, "sometimes people we love don't understand addiction. Sometimes they think recovery means we can go back to being normal drinkers. But you and I both know that's not how this works." I knew she was right, but this was my son. There had to be more to this story. The call came at 8:43 the next morning while I was nursing my 3rd cup of coffee and staring at the bottle that had haunted my dreams all night. Marcus's voice was bright and expectant when I answered. "So, Mom, did you enjoy the whiskey last night?" The question hit me like a slap across the face. Not, "How are you feeling about the gift?" or "I hope you understood my intentions." He was asking if I'd drunk it, if I'd broken 3 years of sobriety because he'd put a bottle in front of me. "Marcus," I said slowly, trying to keep my voice level, "you know I've been sober for 3 years." There was a pause, and then he laughed. Not a warm, embarrassed laugh like someone who'd made an honest mistake. This was cold and calculating, a sound that made my stomach drop to my feet. "Come on, Mom. 1 glass won't kill you. You're being way too dramatic about this whole sobriety thing anyway. It's just alcohol. Normal people drink alcohol." "Dramatic." The word came out as barely a whisper. "Marcus, I'm an alcoholic. You know this." "Yeah, you keep saying that. But maybe that was just an excuse for your problems back then. Maybe you've grown out of it. 3 years is a long time." I felt like I was having an out-of-body experience. This couldn't be my son talking. The Marcus I knew had watched me struggle through withdrawal. He'd seen me shake and sweat and cry through those first terrible weeks. He'd driven me to meetings when I was too weak to get there myself. Besides, he continued, his voice taking on a tone I'd never heard before, "Sarah thought it was absolutely hilarious when I told her what I was sending you. She said you probably needed a drink anyway, considering how uptight you've gotten since you stopped drinking." Sarah, his 23-year-old girlfriend who worked at an upscale boutique downtown and treated our brief interactions like a chore she had to endure. Sarah thought my sobriety was funny. Sarah, who had never seen me drunk, never cleaned up my vomit, never put herself to bed because mommy was passed out again, thought I needed alcohol. Marcus, this isn't a joke. You know what drinking did to our family. You know what it did to you. Oh, trust me, I remember. His voice turned sharp, cutting. I remember everything, Mom. I remember coming home from school to find you passed out in your own vomit. I remember having to walk to soccer practice in the rain because you were too drunk to drive me. I remember eating cereal for dinner 3 nights in a row because you forgot to buy groceries again. Each word was delivered like a carefully aimed dart. He wasn't just remembering. He was weaponizing these memories, using them to hurt me deliberately. I remember lying to my friends about why you couldn't come to my games. I remember forging your signature on permission slips because you were too hungover to write your own name. I remember doing my own laundry at 12 years old because all my clothes smelled like the beer you'd spilled on them. Marcus, stop. I was crying now, but he wasn't done. You want to know what I remember most? I remember the morning I found you on the kitchen floor and realized that my mother cared more about a bottle than she cared about her own son. You ruined my childhood, Mom. You think 3 years of going to meetings and drinking herbal tea can erase 15 years of hell. The cruelty in his voice was breathtaking. This wasn't the pain of an adult child working through childhood trauma. This was deliberate, calculated torture. You think you get to just decide you're a different person now and everything's magically forgiven. You think showing up to coffee dates and sending me birthday cards makes you Mother of the Year. I never asked for your forgiveness without trying to earn it, I managed to say through my tears. I've been working every single day to make amends. Your amends mean absolutely nothing to me. His voice was ice cold now. You know what I think about when I see you sitting there all calm and centered in your little sober bubble? I think about how fundamentally selfish you are. Even your sobriety is selfish, Mom. You didn't quit drinking because you suddenly cared about the damage you'd done to me. You quit because you finally got scared about what it was doing to you. The accusation was so unfair, so twisted, that I couldn't speak for several seconds. Maybe if you start drinking again, you'll finally understand how much pain you actually caused me. Maybe then you'll stop pretending you're some kind of recovery success story and remember what kind of mother you really were. In that moment, everything became crystal clear. Marcus didn't want me to get better. He wanted me to stay broken so he could keep punishing me. The whiskey wasn't a gift or even a test. It was a weapon designed to destroy the only good thing I'd managed to build from the wreckage of my life. The whiskey cost me $400, Mom. The least you could do is pretend to appreciate the gesture. The line went dead. I sat in my kitchen chair staring at my phone for exactly 10 minutes, watching the call timer frozen at 12 minutes and 37 seconds. Then I did something I'd never done before in my entire relationship with my son. I called him back. He answered on the second ring, probably expecting me to grovel or apologize for hanging up on him. Marcus, I said, my voice steadier than I felt, this is the last conversation we'll ever have. What are you talking about? The confident cruelty had drained from his voice, replaced by something that sounded almost like panic. I stood up and walked to my kitchen counter where the bottle of Macallan still sat in its elegant packaging. I'm pouring your gift down the sink right now. I unscrewed the cap with one hand while holding the phone with the other. The sound of expensive whiskey hitting stainless steel filled my kitchen. Mom, wait. What are you doing? Don't be ridiculous. I'm changing my phone number this afternoon. I'm blocking you on social media. You are no longer welcome in my home, Marcus. $400 worth of single malt scotch gurgled down my drain, and I felt nothing but relief. You can't be serious. I'm your son. Being my son doesn't give you the right to try to destroy my sobriety. I worked too hard to heal myself to let anyone, even you, try to break me down again. There was silence on the other end, and for a moment I thought he'd hung up. Then his voice came back smaller now, defensive. I was just trying to help you loosen up a little. You've become so serious and uptight since you quit drinking. I thought maybe one glass wouldn't hurt. The lie was so transparent it was almost insulting to both our intelligence. No, Marcus, you weren't trying to help me. You asked if I enjoyed it. You and Sarah thought it was hilarious. You told me I needed to start drinking again so I'd understand your pain. That wasn't help. That was sabotage. I was angry, okay? I've been angry for years and sometimes it just comes out wrong, but I didn't really want you to drink it. I just wanted you to know how I felt." For a split second, I heard something in his voice that might have been genuine regret. But then I remembered his laughter when he asked if I'd enjoyed the whiskey. I remembered him saying Sarah found it hilarious. I remembered him telling me I should start drinking again. This wasn't a moment of anger that got out of hand. This was planned, deliberate cruelty. I love you, Marcus. I will always love you, but I will not allow you to use that love as permission to hurt me. You're abandoning me, he said, and now his voice cracked slightly. Just like Dad did. You're walking away when things get hard. No, I said firmly. Your father left because he didn't want to deal with his responsibilities. I'm protecting myself from someone who's trying to destroy my recovery. There's a fundamental difference. Mom, please. I know I said horrible things, but I didn't mean them. I was just hurt, and I wanted you to hurt too, but I don't actually want you to drink again, I swear. Marcus, you told me my amends meant nothing to you. You said my sobriety was selfish. You tried to convince me to break 3 years of recovery so I could understand your pain better. Those weren't words spoken in anger. Those were calculated attacks designed to destroy the most important thing in my life. I could hear him crying now, but I couldn't let that sway me. I'd heard him cry before, when he was 12 and scared about his father leaving, when he was 16 and I missed his championship soccer game because I was too drunk to drive, when he was 22 and found me unconscious on the kitchen floor. I'd failed him in all those moments. I wouldn't fail myself in this one. I'm hanging up now. Don't try to contact me again. Mom, wait. I ended the call and immediately powered off my phone. The next few hours passed in a strange, calm blur. I drove to the cell phone store and changed my number, something I'd never imagined I'd need to do because of my own son. I went home and methodically blocked Marcus on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I deleted his contact information from my phone and email. Then I called Janet, my sponsor. I need to see you, I said when she answered. Can you come over? She arrived within an hour, took one look at my face, and pulled me into a hug that lasted several minutes. Tell me what happened, she said. I told her everything. Every cruel word, every deliberate attempt to undermine my sobriety, every moment when I realized that my son didn't want me to heal. Janet listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or squeezing my hand. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. I'm proud of you, she finally said. For what? For cutting off my only child. For protecting your recovery. For refusing to let someone else's pain become your relapse trigger. That took incredible strength, Kathy. He's my son, I whispered. How can I just cut off my son? He's not acting like your son right now. He's acting like someone who wants to watch you destroy yourself. And you don't owe anyone, not even family, access to your life if they're going to use it to hurt you. That evening, I attended an AA meeting and shared what had happened. The room was completely silent as I spoke. When I finished, a woman named Patricia, who'd been sober for 12 years, raised her hand. My daughter stole my credit cards to buy drugs, she said. 3 different times. The last time she maxed them out and disappeared for 6 months. I had to choose between enabling her addiction and protecting my own recovery. I chose recovery. She hasn't spoken to me in 2 years, but I'm still sober. Sometimes, love means saying no even when it breaks your heart. Others shared similar stories. A man whose brother kept bringing beer to family gatherings even after being asked repeatedly not to. A woman whose husband told her she was more fun when she was drinking. Person after person talked about having to set boundaries with family members who didn't respect their sobriety. Recovery isn't just about not drinking, our meeting leader said as we closed that night. It's about building a life that supports your sobriety. Sometimes that means difficult choices about relationships. 6 months have passed since I poured that whiskey down my drain and changed my phone number. Marcus has tried to contact me 3 times through mutual acquaintances. His messages, relayed through my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who somehow got his number, have evolved from angry to pleading to resigned. First, he was furious that I'd actually followed through on cutting him off. He couldn't believe I was choosing my addiction recovery over my own son. The irony of that statement wasn't lost on me. Then, he tried a different approach, claiming he'd been going through a hard time at work and had taken his stress out on me inappropriately. He wanted to apologize and make things right. Mrs. Chen, who's become something of a protective guardian since learning about my situation, told him I wasn't interested in hearing his apologies unless they came with genuine understanding of what he'd done wrong. Most recently, about a month ago, he showed up at my apartment building. The doorman called up to ask if I wanted to see him. I looked out my window and saw him standing on the sidewalk holding what looked like flowers. I told the doorman I wasn't available and watched from my window as Marcus stood there for nearly an hour before finally walking away. I won't pretend it's been easy. There are days when I miss him so much it feels like a physical ache. I see mothers with their adult children at the grocery store or the coffee shop where we used to meet, and I feel a stab of loss, so sharp it takes my breath away. But I also feel something I haven't experienced in years. Peace. Deep, unshakable peace. For the first time since Marcus was born, I'm not walking on eggshells around his anger. I'm not measuring every word I say against the possibility that it might trigger another recitation of my failures as a mother. I'm not carrying the constant weight of guilt that he'd learned to use as a weapon against me. My sponsor helped me understand that sometimes protecting our recovery means making choices that other people don't understand or approve of. She reminded me that addiction affects the whole family, and sometimes family members develop their own unhealthy patterns in response to the addicted person's behavior. Marcus had learned to use my guilt and shame to control our relationship. Cutting him off wasn't about punishment. It was about refusing to participate in that dynamic anymore. I've thrown myself into service work through AA sponsoring 2 women who are struggling with early sobriety. There's something powerful about sharing my experience with people who understand the particular challenges of rebuilding your life in recovery. We talk about the guilt that comes with years of hurting people we love, and how that guilt can become another form of prison if we're not careful. I've also started dating again. His name is David, and he's been sober for 8 years. He works as a counselor at a treatment facility downtown. He understands why I don't go to bars, why I leave parties when the drinking gets heavy, why I have to be careful about certain social situations. He's never questioned my decision about Marcus or suggested that I should give my son another chance. He respects my boundaries without making me explain or justify them. Some people in my life think I'm being too harsh. My sister called me heartless when she found out what had happened. My old friend from work suggested that Marcus was probably just acting out because he was hurt, and that I should be the bigger person and reach out to him. What these people don't understand is that I didn't choose my sobriety over my son. I chose my sobriety over his need to punish me. I chose my mental health over his desire to keep me trapped in guilt and shame. I chose my recovery over his addiction to making me suffer for my past mistakes. I still love Marcus. I probably always will. But I love myself too now, and that's something I never thought I'd be able to say with complete honesty. I love the person I've become in recovery. I love my clear mornings and my clean conscience. I love not waking up with regret and fear. I love the life I've built from the ashes of my addiction, and I refuse to let anyone, even my own son, take that away from me. Recovery taught me that I can't control other people's choices or reactions. I can only control my own responses. Marcus chose to try to sabotage my sobriety as a way to express his anger about the past. I chose to protect my recovery and my peace of mind. Both of our choices have consequences, and we're both living with them. The difference is that my consequences include serenity, self-respect, and a life built around healing rather than hurting. His consequences include the loss of a mother who finally learned to love herself enough to set boundaries. Sometimes protecting your peace means letting go of people who refuse to honor your healing journey, even when those people are supposed to love you unconditionally. Sometimes love isn't about enduring pain from those closest to you. Sometimes love is about choosing relationships that celebrate who you've become instead of punishing you for who you used to be. That bottle of whiskey was never really a Mother's Day gift. It was a test designed to prove that I hadn't really changed, that I was still the weak, broken person who had caused so much damage years ago. By pouring it down the drain and walking away from the person who sent it, I proved something different. I proved that recovery is real, that change is possible, and that I finally value my own healing more than anyone else's opinion of it, and that I've learned is what true self-love actually looks like. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to make the painful choice to cut someone out of your life to protect your own healing and well-being? How do you balance love for family members with the need to maintain healthy boundaries? What would you do if someone deliberately tried to sabotage something you'd worked years to achieve? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below because your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this story resonated with you or made you think about your own relationships differently, please give it a like and hit that subscribe button for more real stories about the complex realities of family healing and personal growth. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to choose yourself even when that choice comes with a heavy cost. Thank you for listening to my story and for being part of a community where we can talk honestly about the hard choices that come with building a healthier life. Remember that your peace, your recovery, and your emotional well-being matter just as much as anyone else's feelings. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next video.